Clippers coach Doc Rivers is not scared of the 73-win Warriors, even with the addition of Kevin Durant this offseason. I think we can play with anybody, and we don't feel like there's a gap. That's all we have to prove, and I think everyone has to prove that. I know history very well in this league, and there's been a lot of super teams put together, quote-unquote super teams, and I know the history. I feel comfortable where we're at, but that's fine if that's what people want to believe. Stephen A., do you think Rivers actually believes there's no gap between the Clippers and the Warriors?
No, I do not. I don't believe him for 1 second. He knows there's a gap. Because the man knows basketball. People may question him as an executive in terms of his ability to acquire players or whatever the case may be. What you can't question is his basketball knowledge. Doc Rivers knows basketball. I think he's an exceptional coach, particularly as a motivator. I'm a huge fan of his, but I also know that he is an eternal optimist, and he refuses to allow a defeatist attitude to enter his locker room. If you don't believe you can win, get the hell up out of here, because he doesn't have any time for some punks who wither beneath the pressure.
Fair. He's
not going to have that. And so Chris Paul's a pit bull. And we know that Jamal Crawford is my favorite sixth man. He can boogie on anybody. My nickname for him is And One, because that's how he looks when he's balling. It's like And One. Blake Griffin is a guy that averaged 23 and 9, but only played 35 games last year, missed 47. He's a guy that averaged 25 and 12 in the playoffs the year before getting hurt. But at some point in time, he's got to be the one that steps up. I don't put that on Chris Paul, because I don't see Chris Paul not doing something that his abilities says he can do. He's a leader. He's a floor general. He's an elite point guard in this game. Plus, with his miniature 6-foot self, he finds a way to put up his points, his assists, and defend. DeAndre Jordan, he irritated me, because I'm a fan of his and I like him, but he was another dude sitting up there acting like gold medals replace championships on the National Basketball Association. It does not. It does not. So I want to see what they're going to do. But there is no question. You had problems with the damn Warriors before they acquired Kevin Durant. What the hell you think it's going to be now? You saw those shots Harrison Barnes missed last year in the playoffs. Does anybody think that Kevin Durant's missing those shots? You saw how Andre Iguodala got hurt and he was missing some of those shots. You think Kevin Durant's going to miss those shots? Andrew Bogut, you don't need him to defend and rebound as much, because you're going to make up for it with the points that you're going to put forth. They might be challenged defensively, and they may have to get it together. But there is no question that offensively, with the greatest shooting backcourt in NBA history, with Draymond Green being a rough rider, with Kevin Durant as that dude, who, by the way, is better all around than Steph Curry, the bottom line is, when we look at the Golden State Warriors, it's them and everybody else right now. And Doc Rivers, if I know that, Doc Rivers knows that. He just can't say so, and he can't allow his team to believe that, because then otherwise, why play the season? Everybody else will be there sitting like me, Max, feeling like, damn.
First of all, I don't think they'll be challenged defensively at all. I think they're going to be excellent defensively, and I think their best defensive unit is with Draymond actually playing the 5, the way they swarm in the paint and everything. Okay, so look, last year, Doc could have made this claim. He could have said, look, there's no talent gap, because if you just simply stack the talent to the ceiling, you know, stacked who has the most talent, let's put it all together, the Clippers were comparable with the Thunder. The Warriors, and the Thunder. The difference was in the way the talent was arranged. Doc Rivers, the GM, hasn't done as good a job as some other GMs in terms of arranging the talent differently. For example, CP3, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan as a big three, boy, that's very talented. But it's a little bit redundant at times, even with CP3 and Blake. Blake kind of runs the offense the way, as a power forward, the way sort of CP3 runs the offense as a point guard. You don't need both necessarily on the same team. So the talent's not arranged properly. Once, you know, in order to counteract the Warriors had the kind of new NBA figured out pretty much. Once they add Kevin Durant, there's obviously a talent gap. I think what Doc is doing here is putting the onus on him. He's saying, look, the talent is similar. You know, even if they're better, they're not in a different league than us. May not be true anymore with the addition of Durant. So what does it come down to, Doc, in that case? The coaching. How are you deploying that talent? And Doc Rivers is a buck stops with him kind of guy, which is admirable. He rallies the troops. He gets guys to buy in and believe. I can even tell you, as a Knicks fan, of all the point guards I've seen in my lifetime, that's after Walt Frazier, including Mark Jackson, including Derek Harper back in the day. Doc was the guy I wanted with the money on the line, playing point guard for the Knicks. He's that kind of player, and here he's putting the pressure on himself as a coach.
I don't view it that way. I think it's him putting the pressure on Blake Griffin, which is where it belongs. Once again, DeAndre's DeAndre, CP is CP. Jamal Crawford is Jamal Crawford. Even J.J. Redick and Austin Rivers, they are who they are. The X factor is Blake Griffin because Blake Griffin is a star. He may not be a superstar, but his talent says he should be a superstar.
He's a superstar.
He's got to step up. I'm saying he's got to step up. But he's not a superstar to me. Not yet. He's a star, but a superstar rises to the occasion and closes, which he has yet to do. And so for me, you got people out there talking about how Paul George should be swapped for Blake Griffin. No, I would love it if the Clippers found a way to add Paul George with Blake Griffin. I can't
How do you intend to do that?
You can't do it. But I'm just saying, I wish. That's my wish list. Because if you had a Paul George with a Blake Griffin at your 4, with a DeAndre at your 5, with a CP3 as your point guard, oh, now we got a different challenge here. And that would be apropos. But the only way for the Clippers to have closed the gap, the only way for the Clippers to knock off somebody as potent as Golden State is for Blake Griffin to be so unstoppable that you force the Golden State Warriors to deal with you instead of vice versa. And I can't see that yet. I can't see that yet. I got respect for this game. I can't see
even before they got Kevin Durant, and obviously Steph is the #1 player on the team before then, and maybe still, was Draymond Green. That's the matchup problem. They can play 5 out with Draymond Green. That's the pick and roll partner. That's the guy who can create from the 5 position if he wants to. That's not DeAndre Jordan.
Right. Got to go, but let me say this. Paul Pierce announced he's going to retire. Looking forward to seeing him in the Hall of Fame.
Truth.
Rudy Gay wants out of sack. If the Clippers get him.
Take a bunch of long twos?
No.
From the without.
Rudy Gay with CP3, playing the 3, keep Blake Griffin.
Rudy Gay's a dangerous player, Stephen A. Just good enough to sink you.
Maybe.
I like him a lot, but he
didn't have CP3.
Not very efficient.
He didn't have CP3.
All right.
No, that's true,
so hate it or love it, it's Golden State versus everybody. We're not buying Doc's words, but are you buying chips? Chip Kelly explains why Colin Kaepernick isn't playing, but someone at this desk is not buying it. The bus, Jerome Bettis in the house to join that discussion. Back in a few. Welcome back. We didn't get into our earlier topic because Jerome came in hot for Max on AP, but let's talk a little Kaepernick here. So obviously the 49ers lost their last 2. Blaine Gabbert has struggled. People are calling for Colin Kaepernick to play, but Chip Kelly's blaming it on his health. Jerome, are you buying Chip's explanation?
I'm buying it right now, maybe one more week, because the problem is very glaring. Blaine Gabbert is not getting the job done. When you look at the numbers, I mean, he's last in yards per attempt, 27th in passing yards, completion percentage, 31st out of 32 quarterbacks. So he's clearly not getting the job done. And I can understand if you're Chip Kelly saying, I want to give him a chance to get fully healthy so now we can insert him and go with him for the rest of the season. If it lasts past another week and they lose, now it's in that situation where now you don't want to play him because of the possibility of inciting a bigger issue now that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. So I think right now I'll give him one more week, but with the way Blaine Gabbert is playing, you have to put in the backup quarterback. It doesn't matter who it is. If it wasn't Kaepernick, you'd still have to put in your backup quarterback because your starting quarterback is not getting the job done. So it's just a matter of time. All you got is one more week before we've got to call you to the carpet and say, why are you not playing Colin Kaepernick?
Under normal circumstances with a normal coach, I agree with you. This is Chip Kelly. He's stubborn. I give it 2 or 3 weeks, and I think Colin Kaepernick will be the starting quarterback within 2 or 3 weeks. Let's not forget, him not starting predates the anthem stance, right? Him not starting, they were talking about and it was also, he kind of lost the locker room, it seems to me, when he wants a trade, even though they bring in a coach that seems perfect for him, right? So now he's got to win back the locker room, which I think the anthem stance has rallied some of the troops at least around him, which could be good. Also, dead arm, to me, sounds like injury, but sounds like a shoulder or labrum, something. It sounds like an injury. But let's not forget, he's already been on the field for a snap, at least against the Rams, right, in that shutout. Kaepernick has been on the field for the Niners this season. and Gabbert's no good, and Kaepernick's probably already better. But if Chip Kelly looks at him and goes, no, he can be the franchise quarterback, he wants to make sure all systems are go before he's on the field. Chip Kelly has come out and said he supported Kaepernick and even argued with a reporter about his anthem stance. He has to know who he studied him in Nevada, like, you know, because he was running that kind of offense. He's got to believe eventually Kaepernick's the answer. 2 to 3 weeks, he's the starter. He'll end the season that way, barring injury.
Nice of you to change the narrative, and I appreciate that because we've discussed this in the past, and I'm not refuting anything either of you are saying as it pertains to what Kaepernick has been through and how he'll eventually be forced to be put into the starting lineup. My position, however, is that don't tell me that his stance on the national anthem has nothing to do with him sitting down. And I'm not saying that Chip Kelly is against him in any way. I'm saying I don't trust Chip Kelly to some degree because of what happened in Philadelphia. I'm also saying that when you are preoccupied with something other than football, that usually provides a head coach of Chip Kelly's control freak nature as an incentive not to put you in that position. And even though you got to think about the team, you got to think about the fan base, you got to think about rallying the folks to support your product, you got to think about the business side and what kind of influence Ned York and others and Trent Baalke and them have had upon you. I am not in any way saying that Colin Kaepernick won't be starting. I am not in any way avoiding or acting oblivious to the fact that he had alienated the locker room, that he had wanted to be traded, the dead arm issue that Kellerman brought up and all of this other stuff. At the end of the day, this is Chip Kelly we're talking about. This is Trent Baalke we're talking about, who ran away a head coach that didn't agree with him. This is Ned York and this dysfunctional franchise that we're talking about here. Don't tell me that Colin Kaepernick's, albeit, you know, in some people's eyes, courageous and admirable position, while in others is obviously not the case, so that makes it a divisive issue. Don't tell me that Colin Kaepernick's stance on the national anthem had absolutely, positively nothing to do
exactly what I'm telling
with
you.
Him sitting down right now.
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
Because Blaine Gabbert, as my man Chris Carter always said, Blaine Gabbert stinks. And I'm sorry, I don't think that you're allowed to stink. But I was sick 2 weeks because they did win 28-0 on opening night against the Los Angeles Rams. But don't tell me that you can stink and still Colin Kaepernick, who took this team to the Super Bowl 3-4 years ago, that has nothing to do with him sitting down. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. It's just a belief, but that's all. I don't believe it.
I'll say this. A team is 1-2, okay? They still believe they have a chance to go to the playoffs. 1-3 becomes that much harder for you to get from up under. But it's still possible. You know, 1-4, you're pretty much done. So I think this is the pivotal week for them from a football standpoint. And I think this week tells the story. Now, you can
think
argue.
They're going to the playoffs?
No. I'm saying you have to believe that. As a coach, you got to think that you can.
You played on some winning teams, man. It's not every team.
I'm not saying they have the team to do it. But as a coach, he's saying the quarterback can change our fortunes. We've got a decent defense. If our offense can give us anything, we'll have a chance.
Well, what I'm saying, Bus, is that they can do that as long as they come on at some point this season. Chip is set up going forward.
But here's the point that, no, they're not, because you got to think Colin Kaepernick is at the end of a contract. So now he's got to show management that Colin Kaepernick deserves a contract throughout all this issue. So now what he has to do is make sure all of those issues are gone. How they go away is the need to have to put Colin Kaepernick in. If you put him in too early, now management is saying, hey, what'd you do? If you wait until, hey, guys, I need him in order for us to go further, then they have to relent and say, okay.
I want to respond to that.
From a Chip Kelly standpoint, it saves him from management, like you said, and now it's only a football decision and not a social.
I want to respond to that. They're not going to the playoffs. I mean, let's disabuse anyone of that notion.
I'm not saying
what I'm saying is, from Chip Kelly's point of view, all he needs is for Kaepernick to come and go 4-4 in the second half of the season. If he does that, not only are they good, could they keep Kaepernick at a discount, because I do agree his anthem stance has probably devalued him on the open market, but to the Niners and Chip Kelly, extreme value over the second half of the season if they can even go 500 They have something. It saves Chip Kelly's job, and everything's okay.
If you're going to give Kaepernick $75 million, say it's a discount, he's got to get that team close to going to the playoffs. You can't justify giving him $75, $80 million and they don't perform very well. You just
Jerome,
can't do it.
keeping folks on their toes. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
we
you.
will see you again soon.